What's up everybody, welcome back to a brand new video on Lexalexus. Today we are returning with the championship reviews, and I gotta say I am really excited to go through this review because the first round of games in the championship, like always, never fails to disappoint. We've got a lot to talk about today. Before we move on, the first prediction league of the first week of the 22-23 season is officially here and it's all its glory. Andy Newbold and Toby Mills have both got over double figures in their first week. Congrats to both of them. They'll be getting a shout out based on their fantastic predicting skills. There's been over 10 of you that have not quite made the list but are just below it, and your scores have been stored and saved. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically save pretty much everyone's points, and eventually if you get enough to crack into the Premier League, I'm going to call it there, you guys will then be able to take over and secure your place in the league temporarily. There's also going to be a separate predictions league for the Premier League as well. What I'm going to do nowadays, Thursday I'll do my Premier League predictions, and Friday I'll do my Championship predictions. So we're going to do two sets of predictions for this channel, which I'm really excited to do actually. If you guys always see, please give the video a like and just tremendously help the channel. Please hit the subscribe button if you're really happy that Championship football is back and are excited for the Premier League as well. And please also share the channel as well, that really helps too. But without any further ado, let's start digesting what happened in the opening week of the Championship. The first result that happened was Huddersfield 0, Burnley 1. So Burnley came victorious with Vincent Kompany taking his first league game with Burnley in charge. And if you see with the starting 11s, Burnley's especially was a heavily changed squad from what we're used to. Maatsen, the goal scorer, for instance, was a Coventry player last year, but he's a Burnley player now. He got the only goal again, and brilliant team goal actually. Ashley Barnes playing a small part in that, and Josh Brownhill doing his bit for that as well. I've got to say, everyone in that Burnley squad, played for each other, and I think Cullen also did very well in that midfield as well. His deliveries was really good, and I'm already very excited about his creativity. With Huddersfield, on the other hand, I saw a lot of frustration in terms of not getting Sorba Thomas and Josh Koroma into the game. They both had glimpses of moments where they held on to the ball, but they didn't utilise it at all, really. Muric could have really had a holiday. It was very one-sided in that game, as you can see from here. Huddersfield didn't have a single shot on target. It was very one-sided by Burnley in the end. The only criticism I'll have with Burnley is that maybe they should score more than the one goal that they had, and they did have a lot of possession. If they do have that, that can be a risk that they may not create enough in certain games, and especially if they let their guard down. But as a whole, brilliant start for Burnley. Huddersfield, they really got to work on some things, because this was not a typical performance you should see from a team that were this close from being a Premier League team last year. Now let's talk about the 3 o'clock. So the first one, Blackburn 1, QPR 0. Two new managers going head to head in this one. So I was very intrigued to see the result for this one. And it was John Dale Thomason that edged Michael Beale's QPR. If you see here with the attack momentum, I'll focus here. Bit back and forth, especially in the first half, but Blackburn did start to get into the game a bit more. The goal scorer was Lewis Travis, so 2-1-0 results in a row there, and Lewis Travis scored a goal he will never forget. It was absolutely spot on, right on the money. Seny Dieng couldn't get anywhere near it, and we all know how good of a goalkeeper Seny Dieng can be for QPR as well. Ben Brereton, Diaz did get involved in times as well. Bale, I think, really stole the show for with that brilliant goal. And as you can see, the defenders were at least awarded a 7 because QPR did bomb forward, but a bit similar to Huddersfield, really struggled to convert. As you can see, alongside with Huddersfield, QPR also didn't have a single shot on target either. Possession stats were really close, so that made things very interesting, but Blackburn clearly, in an attacking sense, looked much better than what QPR did. So, great start for Blackburn. It's just going to be a question whether they can continue it into a 45-46 game season. with QPR, not ideal, especially with the attacking players that they got with that midfield there of Chair, Shadipo, Dykes there. The same problems, that we'll be getting with Dykes and these players and almost over-relying on the likes of Chair, could be another case for this season. And Michael Beale's really going to try and get that right attacking balance to make QPR a bad team to play up against. It was a terrific start for Michael Appleton's Blackpool. They beat Reading by 1-0, and how crucial could that result be come to the end of the season? We can only wait and find out until May. So these was what the two teams had within them there. Reading did have an injury problem, and I think it was literally like a warm-up problem there, and they had to make a last-minute substitution. So their formation actually was heavily tweaked a little bit as a result of that. They went to a back five, and they conceded very, very early on, and it looked like that they really weren't that organised in that position at all. Callum Connolly got the only goal there, and it was actually a nice strike in the end of it, and a great build-up that led to that goal as well. As a whole, if you look at the stats there, Reading slightly edged them attacking-wise, but on target, Blackpool looked much better. Look at that. 3 shots on target for 12. That is a 25% conversion rate. So Reading already having a clear problem for me that they're really not being clinical going forward, and that is going to be something they've really got to have to try and address going forward, I've got to say. So at the moment, I don't think it's the end of the world for Reading at the moment, losing only by 1 goal, but Reading have got big opportunities. They are playing, I think, 2 of the recently promoted teams in their next couple of games. So Reading now really have a chance to try and get some points on the board, because if they don't start the season well, I think it's going to be a very tough season for Reading. With Blackpool, great start for them. They got a home win. Maybe their home form is going to be what's very crucial for Blackpool this year. And it's a great start on Michael Appleton, and he's going to want to continue it that way, following how unpopular he was to be selected as Blackpool's new manager. But he's done everything right so far, which has delivered a win for the Tangerines. And then we have a bit of a shock in the Cardiff City Stadium. It ended 1-0 to Cardiff against promotion favourites Norwich. Both teams went down to 10 men as well. This was a very feisty first game of the season. Now, the stats provided, Norwich didn't really, they don't have a great record in the opening day of the season, and I did know about that. But their record against Cardiff as a whole was very, very good, actually. I think they won 7 out of their 9 appearances against this Cardiff team. But this completely switched on its head. And I've got to say, a bit similar with Burnley, Cardiff had a really new team on the field. And I was a little bit scared that they were not going to gel. But I've got to say, Kit Prey did a good job at the back. Jamilu Collins completely surprised me for how good he was at tracking back. He's really improved his discipline actually as well, which really impressed me. Marlon Romeo, I've got to say, those 2 newest fullbacks could be a really good partnership going forward there. Shea Ojo looked pretty fresh again. Callum O'Dowda assisted the goal for Romain Sawyers, who was also a new transfer as well. The goal wasn't like the cleanest. It was a good distance actually, just outside the penalty box, but it took a very slight deflection, taking the pass to reach to Tim Krul. But a great goal regardless. But what I did say in my watch along, Rashia, Pookie and Sargent, that'll be up there for like Norwich's best front 3, in the Premier League. And for the fact that they really come out short here is not a great sign whatsoever. The first red card came to Perry NG, and in fact both Hanley and NG both received a first yellow card from an argument or dissent. So both could have really been avoided being red carded entirely had they actually improved their heads actually. NG left first. I do think it was a red card, and Hanley's one, I do agree with it being a second yellow as well. As you can see with Norwich, they had 7 shots, but with that front 3, especially with Pookie when the amount of goals he scores, to only have 1 shot on target in the whole game, it's really not great at all. And they really need to try and get a system where they can start converting more chances. Yes, they hit the woodwork. They were quite unlucky with that. But having said that, the signs aren't great. But traditionally with Norwich, they don't start the season well, but they grow into it. So I'm not really setting my expectations with Norwich just yet. They're going to have to perform like this bad for like 2 months for me to think, okay, something's not right. So Norwich are more than good enough to try and overturn this form. With Cardiff, I tell you what, a great impression to beat one of the favourites to get promoted. Cardiff may be a team I might have underestimated quite a fair bit this year. Hull got to a winning start this season with a 2-1 victory over Bristol City, but it wasn't short of controversy, I'll tell you that. So, it was Bristol City that took the lead, and the build-up was really controversial actually with Bristol City. Their coach broke down, so they actually had to arrive at Stadium NKM in taxis, which is not really ideal for their preparation, but they were really right up for it, right from the get-go actually. Andre Weimann scoring the first goal, and it was actually well done with Zach Weiner. He kept the ball alive, crossed the ball into the box. Weimann had the momentum, he didn't really get marked. Great power on the strike, getting it past England to make it 1-0. And they deserved the lead as well. I think Bristol City were the better team for quite the start of the game, as you can see with attack momentum there. It was only really around the 25-minute period where I think Hull started to try and get a little bit more control. They did need to take a little bit of time. As you can see here, Bristol City led at half-time. But Hull complete comeback as well. 2 goals to make sure that the win went their way. Now, the breakthrough came from a very controversial penalty decision. I think it was Tete who was actually substituted on for Estupinian, and he was only on for about 8 minutes, and he got supposedly fouled in the box by Carlson Naismith, the new signing for Bristol City at the back. Looking back at the challenge, I mean, for a start, contact's very minimal, and he looks like he falls to the ground a good second after the contact was made, so it doesn't look very, very good. Especially for Bristol City's part. The referee did award the penalty, however. I mean, why? I couldn't tell you, to be honest. I don't think I would have given it. So Dean Whitestone's got some explaining to do. But it was also a two-fan new signing for Hull City who scored the penalty. And another new signing to score the winner, Jean-Michel Seri. Not the cleanest of strikes, a deflected shot, but devastating for Bristol City. They worked so hard to actually get their first goal, and I do think with the football they were playing, they did do quite well. Their pre-season's been quite good as well, but definitely what's casual with Bristol City quite a lot of the time, and what's common with them is that they can perform well, but they don't hold up performance throughout the rest of the game. Their game management is pretty poor, and they really need to work on that already based on the evidence that they've thrown a lead like that, especially with the good performance that they had leading to that goal. As with Hull, definitely not the finished article yet, but I've got to say the signings look like that they can give Hull another level. So I'm really excited actually to see how Hull are going to perform with those new transfers integrated into the team. Now to the first 0-0 draw of the new season, and that came to Luton and Birmingham City. Luton just don't like playing against Birmingham City, don't they? They failed to score against Birmingham City twice last season, and it looks like it's going to be the same old story here again with them there. So what happened in this game? By the looks of things, Luton were the better team, most of it, with their chances there. And I've got to say, I think Birmingham was slightly left off the hook. There was a couple of periods, especially when playing out from the back, where Eustace, I think, is going to try and have a more progressive type of football under them, that they did make mistakes at the back. But I've got to say, Morris, Adebayo, doesn't look like that they've got a complete partnership there yet. But one thing I do like about this Luton team is the depth they've got now, especially with the quality. Woodrow, Jerome and Cornick were brought on, which is incredible in itself. You would expect them to start on the first team. But those three were in Luton's bench. And Luton, you'd arguably say that they've got a pretty strong team. I still think, in terms of converting chances, they still need to work on some things as well. As with Birmingham, it was an intriguing performance. They didn't really give Horvath too much to do, to be honest there. If you look there, it was 4 shots to 3. I know we had 12 shots, but if you see that 6, over half of their shots did go off goal. So Horvath had a pretty quiet game in goal there. Less said about that game, the better. It was not the best spectacle there, but Birmingham would take a point, most definitely. And I think Luton, definitely with signings integrating into their system, I don't think they'd mind a point too much either. Millwall got off to a flying start this season, beating Stoke pretty comfortably by 2-0, and following this result, it does put them on top of the Championship before Watford have to play Sheffield United later today. Now, looking at this attack momentum there, look at this. It was pretty one-sided until the final 25 minutes or so. By the time when Millwall got their 2 goals, they kind of sat back a little bit and managed the game spectacularly well. And as you can see here, there was one guy with a 9.2 rating with the turquoise feature on SofaScore, which doesn't happen often, but it goes to 19-year-old Charlie Cresswell. I gotta say, We've had so many good debuts. You know, I'm going to talk about Harry Darling in a minute. We've talked about Romain Soares scoring an opening goal. Seri scoring on his debut as well. Tufan scoring a penalty as well. This week has really been the new transfers really showing a new flair to this season. But Charlie Cresswell, I think, has had the biggest impact. I mean, the goals were simple enough. And I think that is really condemning the lack of communication in that Stoke back line. Taylor, Flint and Wilmot, I don't know what they were doing at the back, because Millwall's 2 goals were simple set-piece corners. Corner, header, first half. Corner, second half, header as well. So what was even worse about the second goal is that Stoke didn't even learn from their mistakes about defending set-pieces and corners. And that does concern me with Stoke a tiny bit there. Dwight Gale, as you can see, with 6.5 rating, had a pretty quiet game overall there. And if you see the stats, 57% to Stoke, but despite that, look at that, only 2 shots on target, only 4 shots compared to Millwall's 13. So looked very one-sided based on the attacking point of it. And I've got to say, likewise with Luton, I'm really liking Millwall's squad depth right now. Apparently Stoke missed a really big chance as well. Based on what I've seen, Millwall looked more like that they deserved their win there. And Gary Rowell would have enjoyed that, especially getting the victory against his former club there. So I think Millwall, if they continue to be defensively good and they have standout performances from their new signings like the likes of Charlie Cresswell, I think they have a good season. With Stoke, still more question marks again. They tend to actually start the season pretty well. This is one of the rare few times that they've actually had a defeat in the opening day of the season. They really got to try and make sure that they have a good response, because the reaction to Michael O'Neill on Twitter was not really great for many people that were Stoke fans. Many Stoke fans have really turned on Michael O'Neill. He's really got to step things up. Otherwise, he could really be at risk being the first manager out the door. We're now talking about Rotherham here. They managed to get a 1-1 draw, the first newly promoted team, and they earned a draw in the opening day of the season. And they got that draw against a Swansea's team that a lot of people had predicted a lot of great things for this season, myself included. Now, what was clear from that game is that there's still things to work on for Swansea. Rotherham, though, did take a really quick lead, actually, and it was Chidozie Ogbene that managed to get the first goal, and it was a very simple Brexit goal. Long throw-in by Wes Harding, ball pinballing, and Ogbenze managing to get a header past the reach of Fisher, making it 1-0 to Rotherham. It did happen for quite a fair bit, but Harry Darling, new signing at the back for Swansea, scores a very nice goal. A very similar distance to Lewis Travis's goal, actually. Look at this, more possession for Swansea, which doesn't surprise you there. 14 shots to 9, but look at this. 8 of 9 Rotherham shots were on target. So every time Rotherham looked forward, and they broke quite a fair bit as well on the counter-attack and actually going forward. When they did have the ball, they created chances like no end. And Fisher was kept very busy in that front as well. Swansea would feel how they didn't win when Michael Obafemi literally missed from 2 yards out. It was easier to score than to miss, but a lot of these top quality strikers have been there before, and I think he will pick himself up for that. And I've got to say, I think Rotherham off the ball worked really well. They worked their soft sock, and I actually think they deserved this point. They really earned it. So fair play to Rotherham. A decent point to start things off. They've got a couple of interesting niche games coming up. We'll see if they can pick up results there. For Swansea, they still got to work defensively for me and converting chances, but the football still feels as good as ever. They now just really got to try and find that perfect balance of a really reliable attack with a really shrewd back line. Last of the 3 o'clock games saw Wigan and Preston draw a blank. It did have a red card though, Ched Evans managing to get sent off in that one there. It was a very intriguing performance again from both teams. I will say Wigan actually on the ball looked better, I've got to say. But in terms of the team that came closest to scoring, that was by far Preston. In the first half, Amos made an incredible double save. And Amos was a keeper that I did see. I believe he was in Charlton. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, in the comments there. But I think he was a Charlton goalkeeper there. And I think he had a couple of games in the Championship, but it wasn't many. But he made an incredible double save to deny Troy Parrott and Emil Reece-Jacobson. An even better one to deny Reece-Jacobson there. So he really had a really good standout performance in that moment there. But apart from that, Preston really didn't threaten, actually, which surprised me a little bit. I thought Preston would take the game more to Wigan. Wigan looked more up for it than Preston for me. So Maybe Preston looked a bit sluggish going into this one. Wigan looked a little bit more fresh. Ched Evans did get sent off, as I alluded to in the start. It was a 50-50, for a ball, and he slipped over pretty much Ched Evans to Curtis Tilt, doing some break dancing when he got fouled there. But it is quite dangerous. Ched Evans will have to be suspended. We'll see how much of a loss that will be for Preston there. But for Wigan, likewise with Rotherham, they worked their socks off, and I dare say, I think they deserve this point. With Preston, still a little bit of work in terms of converting their chances. If that defence could stay organised and fresh, maybe Preston could turn a corner this year, and then it will just be down whether Emil Rees can have a 15-goal season and potentially try trying to chip in with some goals. Quality, not the best, but in terms of the standard, both really cancel each other out, I think, very, very well. It was a scrappy derby, and that is what we expected from this game. And I should have predicted a scrappy scoreline like a 0-0 draw, actually. Going to the non-3 o'clock games, we start off with Middlesbrough and West Brom, which was the late game on the Saturday. It ended as a 1-1 draw. Game of two halves, I think. Middlesbrough, I think, were really good first half. Despite the first chance in the half actually coming to West Brom, Jed Wallace trying to do his, trademark cross shots, trying to catch out Stefan in goal. But he did manage to tip over the bar, and it did nearly catch him out, actually, which made me really excited about this game. It was Middlesbrough who took the lead. Brilliant build-up, actually, by Ryan Giles. Chubarak Pom also involved in squaring the ball, and then it found to the feet of Isaiah Jones, and that made it 1-0 to Middlesbrough. And honestly, they did have some chances, some half chances, Middlesbrough to score a couple more goals, but you felt that with the chances that Middlesbrough were missing, they were giving West Brom time to get back into this. And in the second half, I do think West Brom had a really good spell, and because of that, they did manage to get a goal out of it. It was John Swift that got a goal. It was a brilliant through ball. It may have been Malumbi who did the through ball, but it was a terrific through ball. And it was, with Carlin Grant and Jed Spence involved with the running there, distributing the ball, Jed Spence passing the ball down. And then it was found by John Swift in freer space, shooting the ball past Steffen to make it 1-1. And I think overall, I do think Middlesbrough may have deserved to edge it based on the attack momentum for what I can see. As you can see here, 16 shots to 2. But likewise, we're seeing teams with less shots, but then more shots on target, 5 compared to Middlesbrough's 2. So Middlesbrough looking very, very wasteful and very unclinical whatsoever. And that was a really big problem that a lot of us predictors were saying about Middlesbrough's chances of potentially going to the top 2. They've got Watmore and Akpom as their strikers, and I don't really think they're championship, quality strikers in terms of getting 15 goals. They need a 15-20 goal season striker in championship level. Then I think Middlesbrough will be right up there in the championship for me. With West Brom, I've got to say, they definitely dug deep and they did well to get a point out of it actually, and actually managed the game quite well as well. So maybe under Steve Bruce, West Brom will start to turn a new page. I'm just going to be very interested to see how consistent West Brom are going to be throughout the season, because they've got, without a shadow of a doubt, one of the best squads in the league. They just now got to try and fill in good amount of teams actually to make sure that they keep those performances week in and week out. Final game to talk about was a game that happened yesterday, which I did a live stream for. Sunderland won, Coventry won, so I'll be a little bit more brief in this one. Jack Clark with the opening goal. I think it was good play by Linda Goose getting the cross in. And I do think Hyam and Eccles should do better there. Simon Moore would be questioned as well, what he was doing there to get involved in that. Potentially if he stayed in the line, he could have had a chance to save it. But it was such a powerful header by Clark, which I don't think Moore would have saved anyway. It was poor defending by Eccles and Hyam in that right-hand side of their defence there. And I do think Sunderland were really good in that first half. They won many interceptions. They were tackling very well. They're working really hard off the ball. They're making things difficult for Coventry. But one thing we knew about Coventry last year, which looks to be the case this year, they are the comeback kings. They picked up the most points from losing positions last year. And they managed to pick up 1 point already in their first game of the season. And I've got to say, in the second half, I don't know how Coventry didn't score before Gyökeres eventually got the equaliser. Matt Godden had 2 sitters, one in the first half and one in the second half. The second one, being ridiculous. I mean, a toddler probably could have scored the second half one. In the first half, it would have been a bit tricky. Panzo, who I thought was a really good player actually, drove forward, his shot hit the crossbar and Godden didn't manage to head the ball on target. So we were thinking it was going to be one of those days for Coventry where they would have chances but just not take them, which was their biggest kryptonite of last season. But Gyökeres, after he was criticised by me a little bit, by holding the ball too much and being a bit static. He drives forward after a pass from Panzo, gets past 2 players, and then bang! Patterson, who had nothing to do in goal, got beaten at last, and that made it 1-1. And I do think maybe with how good Coventry were in that second half, they may have deserved to edge it. But once again, another newly promoted team who doesn't lose in the opening day of the season. I've got to give a shout out to Honeygun, because he told me that the last time this has happened was actually the first time I did Championship football on the channel. 1920 season, where it was Charlton, Barnsley, and we had Luton, not losing their opening games. So this is, it's not happened for quite some time. So newly promoted sides already competing within the league, and I think they did really well to both get a point out of it. And I think Coventry will be very interesting going forward. I'm just thinking maybe set-piece defending needs a little bit of work. But in terms of anything else, the midfield, with Hamer, already fantastic. So they've got most of the essentials there. They've just got to improve in some of the basics. So guys, that is my reaction to the review of the first week of the Championship. So the table of the Championship is going to look like this. So what you should see is that we should see Millwall right at the top, right there. We've got Millwall second, Burnley third, Blackburn fourth, Cardiff fifth, with Blackpool sixth. We've then got the likes of the teams who have drawn, so from Coventry all the way down to Wigan are all the teams who have drawn their games. Sheffield United and Watford not played yet. And then to the teams who have lost their opening game, Bristol City all the way down to Stoke. Norwich and Huddersfield being in the bottom 3. So guys, that's going to wrap it up today for my review. I'm just really excited that the football season in the Championship is back. If you enjoy these videos, please give the video a like to see more content on my channel. Please do hit the subscribe button. That tremendously helps the growth of my channel. And please also share the video too. All of that really helps as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are legendary if you saw the end of this video. As always, I'll see you guys soon. Take care, everyone.